What's up, everyone? Welcome to Mythic Conversations. Really excited to be here tonight. Not really where I wish I was. I wish I was across the country, over in San Diego with the rest of the crew, but not the whole crew, because we got some people here tonight who are on the East Coast still, and we're going to be talking about Mythic Legions, the role-playing game. That is the topic of the evening. So the studio is out at San Diego Comic-Con this week, and one of the big things that we're out there promoting is the new role-playing game, Mythic Legions, the role-playing game. It's the name. So we're going to be talking about that tonight. I've got a great group of guests to help me do so. But before we do that, I do want to kick off with a little bit of news. So let me get over to my slideshow over here. So a couple pieces of housekeeping and things that are going on. Just a reminder that Mythic Legions, the Horror of Einsamal pre-order is ongoing. That ends in less than 2 weeks. So on Sunday, August 3rd at 11 p.m. Eastern time, that direct pre-order is done. As a reminder, the direct pre-order, the benefits of getting it directly from Four Horsemen are, you get your shipments first, especially all-ins. We always try to ship those all-ins first, and we always try to ship all of the Four Horsemen orders before we ship any of the retailer street date stuff. But additionally, there are obviously some significant savings. If you go all in, you can see kind of the all in on the screen here. You're going to save about 30% off normal retail prices. If you get it elsewhere, including at shows in the future, it'll be those retail prices. Had a great weekend this past weekend. Had a bunch of people over to my house for a Mythic meetup, the first Mythic meetup that I had here at my new home. Thank you to everyone who came. Really, really good time hanging out with everybody and just talking Legions. Thank you to Stefan for taking this photo. I'm always awful when it comes to that. That was Friday night. And then Saturday, we rolled right into ChrisCon. This year it was called the Great American Toy Show, but ChrisCon is how I know it. Our third time doing it. Once again, it was very cool to see everyone out at that show. And not only do we have an array of stuff for sale, we also had some cool prototypes on display. If you were at ChrisCon this weekend, you got to see the prototypes for Cosmic Legion's Ox Crew 1 Thraxon. You got to see most of the prototypes for Mythic Legion's Ashes of Agmendor. And you got to see the 4 characters from the Tale of the Crossroads set, which is debuting, of course, at Legions Con this year. Now, a lot of those prototypes also went out to San Diego. They're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. Our booth number out there, if you watch the afternoon show, we did a little bit of broadcasting from out there. 3245, that is our booth number. We got the big giant Kurzog over there. A lot of cool stuff going on. So if you are out at San Diego, make sure to get out there and check us out. Now that brings us to, again, the topic of the day, Mythic Legions, the role-playing game. We debuted this game, or I should say teased this game for the first time in November at our annual Gcon event in Whippany, New Jersey. Since that time, a number of things have changed. And today, as we go out to San Diego, is really our first time that we've kind of got our foot on the gas a little bit. And we're starting to really talk heavily and plan for what's coming with Mythic Legions, the role-playing game, including the Kickstarter that is currently set to begin in early 2026. So on that note, I brought on some friends tonight. I'm going to introduce you to all of them. I want to start with someone that you may know as a studio painter. He's been with the studio for quite some time. But Cameron Smith is really the architect of Mythic Legions, the role-playing game. He is the game's designer. He's the one that's creating all of this cool stuff. He's going to be the one who's going to tell us a lot about what's going on. So Cameron, thank you so much for joining tonight.
How's it going?
Absolutely. It's going wonderfully well. A lot of stuff to talk about this evening. It's crazy that it's only been, it's 9 months since we revealed this, but so much has changed on the game in that time, including kind of the rollout. There was a point that it was going to be, early this year or middle of this year, but a combination of other things like the dragon and then just us changing some stuff around has really, caused us to push it back a little bit. I think it's better because I really like some of the developments we've been able to make, including the fact that the game, when we go live with the Kickstarter, is going to be done. This is not going to be a situation where we're going live with a Kickstarter so we can develop it. You have this thing ready to go. So when the Kickstarter launches, the game is completed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons we kind of wanted to, push the timeline out a little bit. I think we could have gotten it done and maybe out to market, but as we've all learned now, there's a big difference between getting something done and getting it done right. So this extra time is all going into development, and we'll see that when the game drops, which should be, as you said, early next year. That once that Kickstarter goes live, we'll get a really good look at the game because it's almost complete already.
Yeah, and it's been really exciting as we've gone through the game and the development of it, and you've been presenting all this stuff, and we're going to dig into that more tonight. But it really gets me excited because I know that our core fans are going to love this deep dive into the realm of Mythos, but it really shows me kind of the potential for people that have no idea what Mythic Legions are and what the Realm of Mythos is. I really think that this is going to be a fun game experience that offers something unique and something exciting for people that maybe are already playing role-playing games. And that's, at the end of the day, that's part of my main role, is trying to introduce what we're doing to more people. So I see this game as being a really wonderful vehicle for us to hopefully be able to do that.
I think so. I'm hopeful, and the whole design process has been done keeping not only our current fans in mind, but also folks who are, as you said, are gamers but aren't really familiar with Mythic Legions. So I think that we've all worked really hard to make sure that this game is going to appeal to everyone. Whether you come from the toy side or the game side, there's something new for you here.
So let me reintroduce some of our other guests. Next up, I'm going to bring to the stage someone who's no stranger to this show, the Wolf King himself, Len LaGuardia. Len, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Hello. How you guys doing?
Len, you have been on Mythic Conversations a number of times, but I'm actually very excited to have you on tonight because we get to break kind of a little piece of news. That piece. Kid you not, I pressed that by accident. I was in the videos, I was looking, and I just pressed it. But
it was great.
It works perfectly. It's ideal.
Yeah.
Len, you're here for a very specific reason. You've actually joined Four Horsemen Studios as a team member, as a project manager, and the first project that you are working on very closely with Cameron is a project manager on Mythic Legions, the role-playing game. So first off, welcome and congratulations. I know that, a couple people have known about this, but we haven't made an official statement that you are now a member of Four Horsemen Studios.
Yeah. Hello. Thanks. It's great. It's amazing. It's great to be on the team.
Yeah, and it's great to have you on the team. It's great to have you be a part of everything we're doing here. Speaking of being a part of everything we are doing here, but he's not here, he's out there. We have Trevor Williams, who's joining all the way from San Diego. So, Trevor, that looks suspiciously like a hotel room that you are in.
What? No. What? No. Yes. Yeah, in the hotel room. San Diego Comic-Con's going on right down there where I can see it from here. It's beautiful here. It's sunny. It's cool, but nice. It's great. I want to move here. It's nice.
Have you been in the convention center yet?
No. It doesn't open until 6 o'clock tonight for preview night. So I tried to get a hold of Joe and see if I get a little sneak peek, but they're busy. So they're busy setting up. So
yes, understandable. They are. Joe is in game mode right now. He's going to be a hard one to wrangle at this point, as we all know. So, Trevor, obviously, a lot of the photos that we are seeing on, especially this first San Diego figure, we owe those photos to you. You've also been there he is. He's got it in hand. But you've also been helping kind of on the back end with some of the marketing for the game as well, kind of giving me a little bit of relief. And, you've been part of the team. So excited to have you here. And you're kind of doing double duty or triple duty. Oh, look, there's Steph. We already saw him earlier. Triple duty between the photography, helping with the marketing, and you've also been play testing Mythic Legions, the role-playing game, since a little bit after Legions Con last year. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the Legions Quest team over on the Offworld podcast channel, which includes another one of our upcoming guests, plus Dorclair, to our regular cast, have been playtesting the game. I won't tell you what I'm playing, but I am playing a new race that you can play, and so is another member of the team. So it's exciting to get to play something completely different. That even if you play D&D, you probably haven't played a character like this before. So it's very cool.
Very cool. Well, you kind of teased it a little bit. Our final guest of the evening is another person who is playtesting, someone who's quite experienced with role-playing games, and we are happy to not only have as a playtester, but happy to have as a guest tonight. Welcome, Joe Gonsalves. Joe, nice to have you here. Thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
First time on Mythic Conversations.
It absolutely is, and I'm super excited to be here. So,
thank you for being here. So, you've been playing the game a little bit with Trevor and stuff. And before we dig in, just kind of first impressions. How have you been enjoying the kind of experience role playing in Mythos so far? Knowing, of course, that you're part of the helping us shape this, your early stage as Cameron continues to put the shine on this.
Yeah, well, first off, it's a huge honor to be involved in this in any way. I'm super excited. My two favorite things in life are tabletop role-playing games and Mythic Legions. So those two things coming together and to even be able to have a small part of that is super exciting. Of course, I'm loving it. Being able to tell stories, for a role-playing game in the world of Mythos is just super fun. It's something that I, am extremely enjoying, and I've got a great group of players, that are all really into it. And I think this is something that everybody's going to find some joy with. It's just such a rich world to tell stories in. There's so many possibilities with all the different factions. You can tell any type of story that you want to tell. There's an area of the world that encompasses that type of storytelling that you like to tell. So
very cool. So throughout the night, as I do see questions, I'm going to be kind of monitoring that so we can get those answered. And Cameron, you're going to kind of be my person to answer a lot of these questions. One that just came in is Michael Carter says, how many people do you need to play the new Mythic role-playing game?
I would say there's the kind of standard loadout you get at a role-playing table would probably be 4 to 6 people, but you can play with 2 people. You can play with a single player and a game master running a kind of a solo adventure. That's completely viable, but for the best experience, I would say a game master and 3 to 5 players. You can certainly go over that, and again, you can go with as little as 2 people, but that's the real sweet spot, is about 4 to 6 people total.
Perfect. So we've got another question here that says, can you play with the 6-inch figures with which just kind of keys me up to move on and talk about that. One of the things that we obviously showed the other day, or last week, I think it was, when we were first teasing this, was this updated cover, which is still not the final cover art, but it replaces the other not final art that we showed at Legions Con. And when we put this up, a number of people very astutely noticed, Trevor, that this was a little adventure party that you put together, but that character in the front was something brand new. And of course, that's the figure that you just had in your hands. That is the heroic paladin / cleric that is being offered for the first time at San Diego Comic-Con this week. Now, before we dig into this a little bit, I just want to say once again, San Diego is not the only place you will be able to get this figure. It is the first place you will be able to get this figure. Even though we decked this figure out in gold and black because those are San Diego Comic-Con colors, this is not a true San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. You will be able to get this exact figure, the deluxe version of this, in the same packaging with all the same stuff as the one at San Diego, as part of the Kickstarter when we go live early next year. We will also have standard versions of the Paladin and the Cleric figures because, Cameron, these figures are playable in the game. There's a number of different ways. When I was younger, I used to play Dungeons & Dragons, and at the time, I didn't realize it was called Theater of the Mind, but I believe I've since learned that that's kind of the phrasing used when it's in your imagination versus using a map and miniatures and cutouts and things like that. One of the things that you did very early on in this game was ensure that the rules were flexible enough that players could play how they wanted. So this game does follow pre-established rules. Tell us a little bit about the rule set that it follows and how you can use miniatures or full-size figures as part of this game.
Sure. When we first started looking at doing a role-playing game, we had a couple of different ideas. We could use the open game license or basically make it compatible with an existing game. We could make a new bespoke rules system, and after a lot of conversation, we decided that the best way to go is to publish under the open game license, the OGL. So it's going to be completely compatible with the 5th edition of D&D, 5e, the 2014 version, which is what was really the only version of 5e at the time we started writing. Now the 2024 version is out, but there's no real need to update it because those rules already do what we wanted the rule system to do, which is focus on heroic adventures with mighty characters, performing great deeds, and the D&D rules are really well suited to that. As far as playing Theater of the Mind or with minis or the toys, we made sure you can do all of that. Like with most tabletop role-playing games, Theater of the Mind is a perfectly viable way to play. But one of the things that was really the impetus for even getting to this point was people asking, often at shows at Legions Con and elsewhere, hey, can I make my D&D character? When they're looking at the Mythic Legions toys, ooh, can I make my RPG character? And the answer is always, well, yeah. And then we get to kind of, showcase the customizability and all that. And then the next question was, okay, cool, I've made my character, now can I play it? So we wanted to make sure the answer was, well, yeah, absolutely. So looking at the rules, if you're familiar with 5e D&D, if you're not playing Theater of the Mind, you're playing on a map of grid squares where each square represents 5 feet. So usually players will have a map in front of them with a 1-inch grid on it, each 1-inch square representing 5 feet, and each square holds a single miniature which will represent your character, about 28 millimeters or an inch plus tall. but there's nothing inherent in the rules that really requires each square to be 1 inch. As long as each square still represents 5 feet, the rules don't care how large the physical square is. So we've made arrangements to enlarge the squares so you have the option to play with Mythic Legions action figures on a map of 4-inch squares rather than 1-inch squares, so you can get that really visual theatricality that I think will really pop with our figures on there, and which we know people have been asking about, not only customizing their own figures but getting them in the game. So this is a way to do that.
And that's part of what we're doing here. So this figure that's offered at San Diego for the first time, the idea is that this is not a named character. And someone asked earlier if this is the paladin that's in the Horror of Einsamal story that we've been posting all week. That was not the intention either. Really, the idea with these figures and with what we're going to be rolling out for the figures with the role-playing game, because there will be figures as part of this campaign, but it's not just figures to have figures. These are a playable part of the game if you choose to do that. And the characters themselves, they're meant to be kind of like archetypes. They're meant to be, not a named character that you can use to your own needs. Whether you mentioned, Cameron, people want to make their own D&D character. We know that you can customize these figures incredible ways. Len Wolf King Customs has done amazing work over the years, adding to that customization and really supporting that. Trevor, from the beginning, I know you said that the people you've been talking to from a marketing standpoint have been really jazzed about the idea of customizing their figures and building their character. So I think that's going to be a really exciting part, not only to just have this in front of you as a piece of hand candy, but we've got some cool things that we're not ready to reveal just yet on how these figures are going to be worked into the gameplay. But the cool thing is they are going to allow us to release some cool new figures that have a real purpose for the game. And Trevor, I know that's one thing you've been excited about, seeing some of the things we've got planned here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I've posted some of the shots that I've done with Mythic Legions to D&D art groups, just, people generally drawing or painting characters. And there's a lot of people commissioning artwork for their adventure party. And every time I do, people are like, what are these? Where do I get these? Some people know, but they're like, this is amazing. So, and they don't even know the pop and swap ability of it. So to be able to tell people and start to explain to people that you can take these characters, these here, get a few extra parts, and some of the existing figures that are out there, some that will be coming out, and create your own character, really mix and match this and make your character the way you want it to look. I think it's going to blow those people who are not in our Mythic Legions communities minds. I think it's going to be a really, really cool thing just to have. Even if you play with the figures on the table, great. If you play virtually, just to have we all have created our own custom figures of our characters for both the games that we're playing. And to be able to take those and take a picture of your team, or to act out an adventure that you just went through, and take a picture of it or something like that. Or just have it with you, put it in your pocket, whatever. It's going to be cool. I think.
Well, Trevor, speaking about building with characters, we've got a comment here, a question from your double, Nate Strong, and he's saying, playtime. Cam is the GM. What character or class would Jeremy, Len, Trevor, and Joe play as? So, Len, we're going to start with you. You're playing the role-playing game. Cameron's our game master. What are you playing as? What character? And Nate says class. So in our actual game, Cameron, we call it professions, correct? That has replaced class?
Yeah, there are a couple of aesthetic differences that we wanted to make for a number of reasons. And one is, rather than using the term class, we use the term profession, because in our game that is a more accurate reflection of what that part of character design is. The same way that we don't use the term race for what type of character you're playing, we're using the term species. should be less problematic and maybe a little more descriptive and on point for that.
Okay, so Len, who are you playing as?
I'm gonna have to go to the low-hanging fruit and do like a elf rogue.
Elf rogue. Okay. Trevor, about yourself?
Are we talking about species that we can play in the game?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think that there are some unique things that are outside of your typical humans, elves, dwarves that you can play in this game. So I think that that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So in our game, I am actually playing a vampire rogue, and I'm a vampire that's kind of broken away from from Alithia's, from the Brood a little bit. But yeah, it's cool to be able to play characters like that. And I like the rogue so far a lot better than the wizard in my other game.
Ranger.
I'm sorry, yeah, not the rogue, the ranger. Yeah, sorry, you're right. I'm tired. It's been a long day.
Totally fine.
Yeah, vampire
So
ranger.
A vampire ranger or a vampire rogue?
I'm a vampire ranger.
Ranger. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because Len just picked rogue, so I wasn't sure if you were gonna like just rogues all the way.
Len
across.
saying rogue threw me off completely. What I was going to say.
Fair enough.
I
So
have coffee
vampire
because I've been
ranger.
up since 4:30. Yeah, vampire ranger. I play a wizard in the other game, elf wizard, and that's a tough profession to start out as because you really get your butt kicked for a while. But then you come into your own and you really can do a lot of damage. So yeah.
Okay. Joe, you're not being the game master of this one. You're a player on this one. So what are you playing as?
So my favorite combination to play is a human paladin, and I know that doesn't seem sexy for a game, but it is my absolute favorite combination to play. When I role play, I like to be a hero, and I feel like that is the best combination to have for a truly heroic character that can do the most good in a game. So I'm going human paladin all the way.
Fair
That's
enough.
a sexy human paladin on the screen right there. Look at that.
Yeah,
Right in line.
definitely.
So similar to what Trevor said, where he mentioned playing a vampire, one of the other species that you can play in the game that's new for this role-playing game is what I would choose, and that's a Jaguarian. So being able to play as, that type of a character, I think would be great. Normally, I like to play rogues, so I would basically be Kaipacha. When that figure, and I helped design that figure for the Ashes of Agbendor wave, it was definitely me doing something I thought was very cool. But since we already have a rogue in the party, if I had to be something other than a rogue, and Cameron, I don't believe that we have any kind of bards in the game, at least to begin with, correct?
Well, we've kind of taken the familiar bard class and tweaked it a little bit to fit with what we've established in the mythic lore. So the equivalent, it's a very close equivalent, is a profession called lore master. It's still charisma based. A lot of the magical abilities and such are based on being able to socially interact with others. It doesn't spotlight the usual musical or performance aspect that people be familiar with bards, but you can do that, and it overall plays very similarly.
So Len,
Yes.
a character that is a lore master who's got a very high charisma and social interaction skills. I think I'm going to take that one. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a good fit.
I feel like that was tailor-made for me. So
Yes.
There you go, Nate. Wonderful questions. Thank you for that. Back to the presentation here. So the idea of these figures, and it's tough because we can only give you so much information. One thing we can tell you about these figures is this is a very special deluxe figure being offered, as part of this initial rollout. While it will be part of the campaign, the actual game figures are going to be a little bit different. But this idea of being able to swap parts onto a figure to change the profession that you see here from the paladin to the cleric. That is something that is definitely part of the game. I think is going to be very exciting for both seasoned players, or seasoned, I should say, fans of Mythic Legions, and people who are trying this out for the first time. Being able to customize their figures very simply like that, I think is going to be a lot of fun. Now, out at San Diego, this figure is being offered. And Len, do you have the figure actually with you?
I do. Let me see if I can I set it up so I can switch my camera.
Okay, I'd love to see that.
Not exactly Joe Cam. Let's see if this works. Let me turn the light on.
So there we go. So this is the figure that is out in San Diego. And I'll be honest, this is actually an early prototype of the figure. So the one that's out there might be a little bit different. It might actually be packaged with a different one of the heads on it. But you get a little bit of a sense, at least of an early look at what this figure looks like. That wonderful new art from Nate was actually shown on How Did They Do That? Curtis's show earlier this week on Monday. He had a show with Nate. If you haven't checked that out, please be sure to do so. Now, in addition to the packaging itself, inside of the package, there are some very cool cards that are being offered.
Should I open them?
Well, you know what? I actually have them right here. So
there you go.
These are the cards that are being offered in the package. And what these are, these feature some brand new art from Nate Barch that's being seen for the first time ever. And the cool thing with these is if you flip these over, they've got just a little bit of information about that profession, and they have a QR code. That QR code, Cameron, goes to a pre-filled out player sheet. So for those who are new to role-playing games, one of the things we're talking about doing with our Kickstarter is having what we call a beginner box, a basic set of things that, someone who's new, you can get this one box and it'll get you started playing kind of a basic adventure. Typically, as part of those beginner boxes, you get these pre-rolled characters. Can you explain what that is a little bit?
Yeah, part of the tabletop role-playing game experience is making your character. And some games really prioritize a very quick character creation system, and some have a very in-depth character creation system. I think we kind of split the difference so that it doesn't take too long to make a character and it's not difficult, but there are a lot of options for customization. And certainly for more experienced players, I think this part of the game is a lot of the fun is really going in and designing that character. Sometimes for newer players, there's so much to learn, it can be overwhelming. So we're going to provide pre-generated characters that all you have to do is take a look at the character sheet and use the information that's already there. Once you've then become familiarized with these iconic types of characters, paladins, clerics, rogues, wizards, and you can play right off the provided paper, then you'll be ready to go in and make your own and spend the time developing your character and really super personalizing things.
So on that note, Cameron, a question that we just had in the chat, which is similar to a question that Nolan, Eric's son, was asking me when I was talking to him in the studio is, can we use existing figures and or characters like Attila or Artemis? So I remember when I used to play D&D as a kid, it was during the time when like LJN was coming out with the toys and stuff. And I always just wanted to be Warduke, right? Because Warduke, I mean, as a kid of that age, Warduke looked cool. So I wanted to play him. If fans want to kind of be those characters, even if we may not provide it, is that something that they'll be able to kind of almost create, like roll up their own Gorgo Aetherblade sheet and play in the campaign as that character?
I mean, if that's the story that they want to tell at that table, sure. There's no reason why you can't do that. If you want to play as a party that's, you know, Sir Ignatius and Attila, you can put them together and play those characters. Now, some of those characters, as they kind of come up in the background in the story, we'll be putting out, you know, official stats for them at some point, but certainly people are always welcome to make up their own stories at their table. Like, we'll provide enough information that the world of Mythos kind of comes alive, and you can use that main storyline that we've seen develop through the Mythic Legions toy line as kind of a background and a setting for your own characters to adventure in. But again, if at your table you want to, you know, play any of the characters we've established, sure, go ahead. There's in that kind of hobby aspect, there's no wrong way to play the game. As long as everyone at your table is having fun, you're doing it right. The rules are the guideline, and we think, you know, the best and easiest way to go, but whatever works.
So looking at, I mentioned we've got the QR code on the back. What that's going to do is that's going to bring you to a downloadable player sheet. So this is the first time that we're seeing the actual player sheets. And Len, I think we have a little bit of a scoop here as well, kind of in the spirit of, you know, working with people we know and love to bring something new to the table, to help us out with projects. Who did you enlist to help design this player sheet?
Well, right away, my main man, someone that has a vast knowledge, not only experience with art and layout and design, but with RPG games, because he's been playing them his whole life, and that is Emil Wickman. And he did an absolutely gorgeous job on these. We did a lot of work to make them very specific for Mythic Legions, to have that feel of Four Horsemen Studios, and I think he absolutely nailed it.
Yeah. So very cool that we were able to kind of rope Emil into helping out with this project as well. I mean, it's always special when, like I said, people that we know and love and are such supporters of the toy line and the community, when they get involved and are able to do stuff like this with us. So Cameron, we also have obviously a blank version of this. For someone that wants to roll up their own character and start from scratch, they're absolutely going to be able to do that. But for someone that wants to play as either the paladin or they want to play as the cleric, we've provided some of those stats for them. But once again, this is a starting point. I love this idea that, you know, we're giving you the set of rules, but you said very early on, the primary rule is have fun. You know, these are guidelines, have fun. So we're giving you these basics here to start with, and I'm sure people are going to alter these to their own needs.
Yeah, I think as long as the role-playing hobby has been around, there's been a really strong tendency to what in the hobby is called homebrew. You know, your house rules, you're making stuff up, you're changing things to fit the game the way you and your friends want to play it. And I'm looking forward to hearing the stories of how people are running their campaigns, what kind of stuff is happening, how their story's developing, what kind of homebrew rules they're using. And I think all that'll happen, you know, organically once the game gets out there. But these character sheets will be a great way for people to kind of jumpstart it, because obviously you can start using these in your games now. If you look at the character sheet, if you already play 5e or pretty much any version of D&D, it's going to look familiar to you. There's a lot of familiar elements, but there's going to be a few things on here also that maybe players haven't seen before that are unique to our rule set and to our setting, but they can find that out as they go and explore the character sheets. That'll be more fun.
Trevor, looking
Yes,
at the time, you must be getting to the point where you got to get out there onto the floor.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we got to go get in line. I have no idea what the line's going to be like.
Okay.
Things open at 6. So, yeah, I'm going to jump. I'm going to roll, as they say. pun intended. But yeah, this is exciting. I can't wait for this. I hope to see some people on the floor coming. I'll be at the booth. You know, I'm going to be hanging out all weekend probably over there generally. So I will see you there. And yeah, if you got questions you want to ask me, shoot for sure.
Awesome. If you're out there, make sure to see Trevor. Trevor, we'll talk to you when you get back next week.
All right, guys. Have a good show.
Have a good one.
Later, Trevor.
See you, Trevor.
So speaking of the booth over there, we've got a little bit of another scoop, another sneak peek. This is a couple photos that were sent to us from the game team out there, kind of showing the display that we've got. And you can see right there, Cameron, you were talking about that kind of grid map and everything, and playing with the minis and stuff. We can see some of that, and this is a placeholder map. This is something that we were allowed to use. We actually have some of our own maps that are being created, which is interestingly a question that people have been asking a lot about. But it's cool to be able to see all of this stuff on display. I know we had some sample stuff at Legions Con in November, but it's really come a long way since then, Cameron. Tell us some of the things that we're looking at here.
Well, first of all, the book there is a mock-up copy of the role-playing core rule book. As you mentioned earlier, the art's not final, but I think it's going to be something similar to that. And then the whole bottom of the display is that map. It's hard to see in these particular shots, but the map is marked with that 1-inch grid, and all those miniatures are each within one of those squares. And those miniatures are some of the Mythic Legions figures that Bill Mancuso went in and kind of manipulated the files and shrunk them down, and we printed them out at 28 millimeter scale. Len, I know there was a cartographer who was gracious enough to let us use his battle map for the display. I don't have his information here in front of me. I don't know if you have that, but if we can't give him a shout out now, I'm sure we'll give him a shout out in future for
Yeah, his name is he goes by Daniel's Maps on Instagram, and he did not have time to work us into commission this year. He's super talented, but we're going to work with him next year on some special maps. But he did give us permission to use this map of his, which was a pre-existing one. So that's where he was gracious enough to do that, so we can use it for display purposes.
Yeah, and we have some other cartographers that Len's been reaching out to, and the maps we're going to see for the role-playing game are just going to be awesome. The people that we've managed to source for this, I'm very excited to work with, and I'm looking forward to when we can talk about that. There'll be some cool surprises there.
Now, Cameron, we're still working out exactly what's going to be included in that initial Kickstarter, which we can, by the way, say is going to be at the start of 2026, early 2026. As of right now, we're targeting February, but the Kickstarter kind of placeholder page is already up, which we're going to look at the end of this conversation. But one of the questions that we've got here from Mark Rivera is, will there be minis to coincide with the game figure releases? And I know we're still working that out, but we do, as you can see right here in the photo, the minis, there are definitely plans for minis of some sort to be included. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. From the beginning, we've known that not only do we want to make it possible to play with the 6-inch figures, which you can see in the photos there, the Paladin SDCC figure is on the left side of that display, but also we want the more standard hobby 28 millimeter miniatures. There's going to be a lot of folks out there who already have big collections of 28 millimeter miniatures, and we want them to be able to use them and just add some mythic pieces to that and continue playing, because that's been the hobby standard for so long. It was just a no-brainer to say, oh yeah, we're going to do miniatures. There's been a lot of inquiry into exactly how we're going to implement that, as far as what material we're going to use, how we're going to go about manufacturing them, and a lot of that's still up in the air. But yeah, definitely there's going to be miniatures included with the game as well.
Joe, how's this looking to you so far? Getting to see these kind of sample displays out there at San Diego. Are you like me, wishing that you were out there seeing them in person?
I'm drooling a little bit. It's true. Is that a Mythic Legions pencil?
Oh, good eye.
Yeah, man. I've never been excited to get a pencil before, but I want one of those so bad to role play with.
I'll make sure you get one of those, Joe.
Well, thanks, Lynn. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's amazing. So I have a massive collection of miniatures for tabletop role playing. I have been inadvertently army building Mythic Legions to prepare for this. Apparently, I could run encounters right now with the amount of orcs and ogres and skeletons that I have. So the idea that you can play, a variety of different ways, I think is really exciting. It's, what fits your collecting habits, what, fits your, I of course personally want all of it. I want the figures and the miniatures just because I'm super excited about all of it. But, everything looks so good, and I can't wait to get it.
Very cool. I'm going to come back for a minute. So going back a little bit, talking about, revealing stuff for the first time. Cameron, as you've been putting together all of the book, you've been working with, different people and stuff. And one of the people you've been working with is a gentleman who's actually putting all of this into the visual format of what the core rule book's going to look like. And it should be noted that pretty much everything we're showing tonight, this campaign is going to go live in February. So everything you're seeing is still in development. This is very much an early look at stuff, but we do have an early look at some of the work that's been done on the core rule book. And I'm really, really loving visually how this is laying out, Cameron.
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to get Dave Taylor of Dave Taylor Miniatures on board. If we have folks out there who are longtime Warhammer miniatures games players, that you may know his name. He's been around the hobby forever, and he's been doing our kind of final edits and layout, and these pages that he's provided are just a mock-up, a not final thing. We gave him some sample art, and actually Nate Barch did that new background texture you see here, that kind of parchment look for it, and Dave's been knocking it out of the park with making this look like something that's very much part of the Mythic Legions universe.
Yeah, I'm definitely digging this, and I'm looking for the content that I was sent this morning, and I'm struggling to find it.
I don't think I've seen this particular spread before. I really like it, and I think we've got work from Emil in here as well. Len, you can correct me, but didn't Emil do the framing on here? Do the border work for the illustrations?
Yeah, we really liked so much with the work that Emil did on the character sheets that we thought we would carry it over to the book in some way. So like we all said a lot, this isn't final, but this is a direction I think we're moving towards. So yeah, he definitely he had a little bit to do with the layout on this, and Dave especially did an amazing job with it. So it's definitely going to be a really cool collaboration. The book's going to be absolutely beautiful. I'm super excited for the fans to get it in hand. Even if you're not, or if you're really new to role-playing games, I think you're really going to enjoy it because it's going to have beautiful illustrations and pictures. So a lot of which you've never seen before.
Yeah, I think the appeal of the book, just as an artifact, as an object, is really going to appeal to people, even if you don't want to play the game. It's a great presentation, and those folks who are already into Mythic Legions or want to know more about the lore, there's going to be a lot here that's not only kind of collated from everything we've published so far, but taking it a step or two farther and really doing a deep dive into some of the lore, because the world has to really be able to be lived in and experienced. So, folks who are lore hounds, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, well, on that note, one of the things I really loved, Trevor earlier talked about playing a vampire. I talked about a Jagualian. Skeletons are actually also a species that you can play as well. And a number of people over the years with the toys have actually asked, like, how do skeletons work? Like, how do they speak? They've got no vocal cords. How do they move? They've got no muscles. And I'm going to read a little bit of what you wrote for this section on skeletons. I really, really love how it explains how skeletons work in the realm of mythos. And it says, the vast majority of skeletons as a species are created by the necromantic magic of Necronominus. Most of these undead only have a rudimentary intelligence and very limited autonomy, instead being under the direct or indirect control of more powerful undead. It is only exceptional individuals who are able to break free of this control and exercise their own free will. Very few skeletons are created in such a way as to be free of this influence from the beginning. Such individuals are usually of high rank within the congregation of Necronominus and have legions of lesser undead under their command. Player character skeletons are of the less common variety with autonomy and free will. They may belong to any faction, though of course they will likely be treated with fear and mistrust, especially amongst the followers of light. Even the other factions which follow the Dark Four may be wary of skeletons, assuming them to be under the control of the congregation of Necronominus, sent to infiltrate his ostensible allies as part of his own inscrutable agenda. So I love, Cameron, how you're setting it that, like, hey, you can be a skeleton, you can be a skeleton that's somehow heroic and trying to do good. You can be part of the other, factions that are in the Legions of Dark. It definitely gives a lot of options for role play. But it's this next part that I really thought was interesting. Physically, skeletons vary rather widely. As all the sentient species of Mythos has some form of skeleton while alive, any of these can be made undead. The differences between a skeleton which belonged to a human and which belonged to an elf may not be readily apparent. Dwarf skeletons, of course, tend to be of short stature, and orc skeletons tend to retain the tusks, which are so recognizable. Among the undead, this makes little difference, as their old habits and cultures died with their bodies. Skeletons retain no memories of their former lives, so cannot use any skills or abilities or speak any additional languages known to them while alive. Despite not having things like vocal cords or tongues, skeletons are capable of speech. Likewise, although they appear bony, they are just as vulnerable to piercing and slashing weapons as their living counterparts. The magic which infuses their bones and creates the semblance of life with which they are imbued exists to some degree in a physical sense. It allows them to see without eyes, to hear without ears, and so on. As it also binds their bones together, it is this magical force which can be damaged by weapon attacks, which might otherwise have little effect on a mundane skeleton. So that idea of these skeletons having almost like this magic, almost like aura that's animating them, I thought was very, very cool. And it immediately answered that question that so many people have asked over the years that I've just artfully refused to answer because I didn't know the answer. I love the fact that we answered that here.
Skeletons were I think probably the biggest challenge in the species, because they're so different, but I think people are going to have fun playing as skeletons. And again, I'm looking forward to hearing the stories of what people come up with and how they deal with the particular challenges and abilities of playing skeletons, in their games.
And again, very cool to see the actual page laid out here. It's just, like you said, I think that even just flipping through this book, it's going to be a very visually interesting volume, and it's going to have a good amount of lore, as you said earlier, Cameron, for people that I think are just going to enjoy, that aspect as an additional benefit of this game.
Yeah, that was actually some of the most fun part of our. Not that any part of it has been drudgery; it's all been great. But some of the most fun has been digging into the background of Mythos and kind of fleshing out stuff that's been hinted at in on toy packages and on website write-ups and stuff for years, and kind of being able to solidify some of that. And put in that connective tissue in the narrative that keeps things flowing.
So, Joe, you ready to start flipping through these pages?
Oh man, I can't wait. Can I tell a quick story about the skeletons though from our play test? So Jesse Arnold is playing a skeleton in our playtest game, and this was something that I really enjoyed. There was a spiked barricade across the road. The group sees a couple ogres heading up the road. That's going to be their next encounter, their next fight. Jesse takes his skeleton character, and has it lay over the spiked barricade like it's just a skeleton that's dead on top of the barricade. When the ogres walk past the barricade, he springs up and attacks them from behind with surprise. And I thought that was a really fun, creative way. Being a skeleton, the ogres wouldn't be as suspicious as they would be for maybe, a living character that was trying to do the same thing. So that's one of the fun things that I'm really looking forward to seeing, how people can take some of these different races that are unique, to Mythos, and the fun things that they can do with them, because they are so unique.
So we got a question here from JMax77, and we covered this a little bit earlier, Cameron, but it certainly bears repeating, asking how long do we have to wait? So we mentioned that February 2026 is the planned Kickstarter, and what we had said is that by the time we go live, the game is going to be ready. Now, there's also some figure components as well, but we're also in the process of getting that already. So our goal is to be able to deliver on the rewards as part of this campaign much, much quicker than would be typical of Kickstarter campaigns, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. If things go according to plan, and so far they have, everything will be done well before the Kickstarter launches. We'll have all our answers back from printers and manufacturers and packaging and distribution and all that. So basically, once the Kickstarter completes, we'll have a much more solid idea at that point of what the print run is going to look like, and we can just contact our partners and say, okay, push the big red button and let's get the manufacturing rolling, so that we're only looking at manufacturing and shipping. So I think it's going to be a matter of a few months after the Kickstarter finishes that we can have this in people's hands.
Very cool. That's the goal. Now, Cameron, during the development of this, you've asked a lot of questions, and you're shaping this, and it's amazing how much lore I've written and how many conversations I've had with Eric about this world. You working on this really shined a light on so many elements and aspects of Mythos that we had never ever thought about. I remember when you came to us and you said, how does time work in Mythos? And it was just like, that's something that, because of the way that we've, written bios and even stories and stuff, you had to get so deep into a lot of that stuff. And it's been really exciting to see you flesh out those elements of the world. And I know people love the different aspects of lore. So what I thought would be really cool would be to give some of that information, starting with the days of the week. So the weeks in Mythos, it is a 7-day week, correct?
Yes. In conversations with you and with Eric, we decided that the easiest way to make this transition was to have a lot of mythic flavor, but to not make it so alien that it's tough to relate to. If we decided to say, okay, a day on Mythos is 32 hours, that makes it really tough to calculate things. So days are 24 hours, and there's 7 days in a week, so that the time it is an analog to what we use in the real world, so it's easy to grasp. But there are the days of the week with their names in Mythos, and some of those will look familiar to people who know some of the Mythos lore and the Mythos characters, but I kind of took a cue from the way we have our days of the week named, which is, after the sun and the moon and, Saturn and Thor and, Odin and that kind of thing, and kind of convert that into a more mythic way where it's not directly named after the specific characters or beings in Mythos, but it takes influence from that.
Absolutely. I can't wait for people to start. Trevor makes his calendars every single year. I'm really hoping that he changes the days of the week to match the Mythonian days of the week. So we stuck with a 24-hour day, 7 days a week, but we went with a 13-month calendar year that mapped to certain moon cycles, and we've got that here as well. So we've got 4 different seasons with 3 months in each, except for the summer season, we've got 4 months. So tell us a little bit about kind of this breakdown here.
Well, in order to keep it in line with our standard calendar, we went with, rather than 12 months of varying lengths, 13 months of 28 days each, which gives a 364-day year, and we can put in a leap day if we want to for flavor later. And I was looking at the ways different cultures named the months, and specifically the way some Native Americans named the different full moons throughout the year, and took some inspiration from that. But in this case, being that the 28-day moon cycle lines up perfectly with the 28-day month cycle, you'll always have, the first lion moon is always Leodar, and that's always exactly 1 full moon cycle until you hit the hunger moon, which would correspond roughly to February for us. And of course, the further you go along in the year, the more that there's a little bit of a difference between the 28-day cycle and our cycle, so you can't line up the months mapped directly onto our months that way, but you can get a pretty good idea of the time of the year and where it would overlap.
Len, despite Cameron's eloquent explanation of all this, I think that he did 13 months because he's heard me say so many times that I wish we had an extra month to solicit product, because it's getting harder and harder to do Mythic Legions, Cosmic Legions, Role-Playing Game, Infinite Legions, Figure Obscura. I need more months. So the answer apparently is I just need to move to Mythos because I get a whole extra month to sell stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. We can get Trevor to make his calendar with an extra month for all the Mythic fans. It's Trevor's big calendar, so he can do that.
Joe, being, as you said, such a big fan of tabletop role-playing games and Mythic Legions, I've seen a number of people in the comments saying we're getting into like deep nerd lore now. Is this the type of stuff that really kind of gets you excited to see all of the little minutia of the world and everything like this?
Deep nerd lore just happens to be my favorite kind of lore. So absolutely, I already looking at these things, I can't wait for characters to have the name of their character, but then add to an introduction that they were born under the eagle moon, or use the names associated with the days of the week or the months of the year as their character names, like a lot of people do, in the real world. So I think the more resources like this that you have to place in your game, the more real it feels. If you're saying, traveling to a certain location will take a month, or you say you'll be under the serpent moon by the time you arrive, that adds some great flavor to what you're doing and helps build that world and makes it feel more fanciful and mythic. So I'm very excited to get this information. Absolutely.
I love that. When I'm coming to the studio from now on and people ask me what time I'm going to arrive, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'll be there at 8:00 in the morning. I'll be there under the serpent moon. That's how I'm going to phrase it from now on. Let them figure it out.
Absolutely.
Jeremy, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How excited are you to use this new information in the stories that you write?
I've already started using some of it.
Oh, there you go.
Some of the stuff that I've been working on, this week has been actually a lot of writing and stuff, not only with all of the Einsamal short stories. Those were written a few weeks ago, but just kind of putting some finishing touches as they get posted. But also working on some other stuff for the end of the year. It's been really cool to go back to Cameron's stuff and reference it and, use some of the world building that he's done. I love it. I absolutely love having that stuff that adds to the overall story. And like I said, Cameron, it's been great to have to think about some of this stuff, all of these little, pieces of the minutia of the world that we're building here that we've just never stumbled upon. And now we are. It's to your point, it's making everything so much richer.
That's cool. And one of the things I'm looking forward to from my side is continuing to develop this, because there's just no way that we could fit everything that we've already established about the lore and everything that's coming into the core book. It would be the size of an unabridged dictionary. It would be enormous because there's so much. So there's a ton of new information like that in the core book, but there's so much room to continue to explore and do deep dives into particular aspects of it in the future. I'm really looking forward to already what's next in the game line.
So on that note, Cameron, we've got about 20 minutes left, and I'd love, because you just brought up something that I think is really important, is this idea that this is not one and done. Like, we're not doing this Kickstarter, putting it out there, and then moving on to whatever comes next. Our aspirations for this is that this is going to be a new product line for Four Horsemen Studios. And, you are already looking well beyond the Kickstarter at expansions and things like that. So without giving really too much away, just maybe kind of tease a little bit about what we have in terms of how we're going to continue to grow this.
Sure. Well, again, as you said, it's not a one and done. This is the start of something new and something big and something that, as a whole, the studio is really committed to. Four Horsemen have already, even though the game's not out, a lot of resources, a lot of time and care and effort has gone into it so far, and it's not just this core book. This is going to be the beginning of regular releases for the game. So we'll take a look. We're already discussing, but we'll kind of solidify a schedule soon. But we're looking at everything from custom dice sets in faction colors to packs of character sheets, definitely adventure modules, right? Usually around 24 pages, and that'll each one will usually be a full evening's adventure or a 3 to 4 hour game session. A lot of those campaign books that will explain in game terms what some of the events, the large events in Mythos are. Deep dives into the factions, new professions, new classes, new playable species, even as it is now, each faction has 2 unique professions that are only available to that faction. So, as an example, any faction can have a paladin, but if your paladin is from the Order of Aetheron, he has the option of being a Templar. So there's a lot of that. So that's something I want to continue to do in the future and really flesh out the faction system and the way that interacts with the characters and the play at the table. I really want to explore magic, because magic in D&D and the way it works in game terms has been long established. But there's things that we've seen in Mythos that don't really fit that paradigm. We have our own take on magic, especially when you're talking about more powerful magics, like opening portals between dimensions to let Arethyr in, and these really, world-shaking mighty powers. So I want the chance to explore that more. It's limitless. Who knows what else there's going to be? We have a pretty good idea of what some of the core things are going forward, but I think we're going to surprise ourselves too by, as we continue to develop stuff, to see where that leads us, see what kind of feedback we're getting from players and fans, what people are really, gravitating towards, and be able to keep this a really dynamic and living game system.
Very cool. We have some great questions coming up here. David Bennett says, will it be hard for someone to learn how to play that has never played D&D before? So you mentioned earlier that one of the advantages of using the 5e 2014 system is not only is it very familiar to a lot of existing gamers, but it's very easy to learn for new gamers. And we're going to have that beginner box. But I'd love it if you could just talk for a few seconds or a few minutes, whatever, about that idea of, I've never played before. Is this going to be hard?
It's totally a valid concern when somebody's jumping into a hobby like this that's so enormous. But I'll go back in time and credit the designers of the 5e system, because I think that when they put out 5e under that open gaming license, they really knocked that out of the park with a system that you always hear, like, a minute to learn, a lifetime to master. They've really created a system that is easy to pick up, that's intuitive, that's relatively simple, but at the same time has a lot of depth and a lot of nuance for experienced players. And that's one of the reasons, again, that we decided to go with publishing under the OGL for 5e, is that it covers both those bases. It's easy to learn, and it's very deep and expandable and customizable.
Joe, you've played with a lot of first-time gamers as well.
Yes.
5e rules, what we're building this on, going to be very new player friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. 5e, Cameron's absolutely right. 5e is such an easy system to pick up and learn. I know some of my son's friends will play on their lunch break at school. So, they'll have a 30 to 40 minute game, on their lunch break. It's that easy to pick up on. We also live in a wonderful time where there's things like YouTube University, where if you don't know anyone that is familiar with it, there's a lot of resources out there where you can have it broken down for you how to play. But of course, the best way to learn is just by picking it up and playing it. And it's not anything daunting like it used to be. I know some people that started with, first or second edition. It was almost like taking a college course trying to get all the rules down and memorized. That's not the case anymore. It's really designed to be user friendly. And, like three of the four players were, new to, I guess 4 now with Bill, very little experience or played a long time ago, and 2-3 games and they were like old pros, just right into their characters and using their abilities and everything like that. So yeah, it's a very, very user friendly game.
Good.
Absolutely.
Len,
Yes.
we got some marketing-esque questions, so let's bang some of these out.
All right. Let's do it.
In true fashion, our fans are so excited for this product that they're already asking us what's next. With the new product line, could we see Cosmic Legions RPG in the future? So, short answer, anything's possible, but our focus really right now is on the Mythic Legions role-playing game. The success of this is what we're focused on before we think about expanding this into any of our other brands. But certainly if this thing blows away and everything, we would love to be able to explore more of our properties with a similar game setting. Cameron, you've already built some of these rules with potential expansion in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. That was kind of an ancillary part of the conversation from the beginning, is will there be a cosmic game? And one of the things we decided early, me and you and Eric speaking about it, is that the Mythic Legions action figures are going to continue to be the flagship. That's what's really going to push the narrative of the whole world of Mythos, and that's a big benefit for the game, actually, because as each wave of figures comes out and the lore gets deeper and richer and more complex and added to, we have plenty to play with to keep it equally deep and rich without having to worry about, oh geez, we've passed up all the lore that we've established. Where Cosmic is such a relatively young line, I feel like it's still developing so much of the lore there. I don't want to jump into it with a game now when I'm excited to see how the Cosmic story develops with the Cosmic Legion stories over the next year or two, and we'll have so much more, experience making games to, by that point, and also so much lore to pull from.
Another question around marketing. Ted Matthews asks, just curious why this game is going back to a Kickstarter campaign. And he previously talked about the fact that we had mentioned that we didn't put the Baether Dragon on Kickstarter, so we wouldn't have to pay Kickstarter fees and could keep the price really low. And Ted, the simple answer to that is it is a marketing decision completely. Kickstarter is such a wonderful platform for role-playing games. There are so many creators that are putting out really, really cool products and content through Kickstarter that there's a really hungry market for it out there already. So while we could just sell it direct on our website, we certainly have the infrastructure to do that. One of the reasons that we're going to Kickstarter is to broaden our reach, because as excited as we are for the Legionnaires to play this, we're thrilled to have Cameron introduce people to it at Legions Con and hold play sessions and have Joe and everybody running, their games. And, that's all super exciting. And I'm thrilled to have the Legionnaires dive into this. But we want this, as I said earlier, to be a channel that's going to bring new people into the realm of Mythos. And we decided early on that despite what additional expenses there may be through Kickstarter, that was the right way to get this to the widest audience possible.
Jeremy, if I could add just one thing onto that.
Please.
Being in the role playing hobby myself for ever and ever, I've seen the way some Kickstarters are really successful, but they kind of shoot themselves in the foot because then you can't find the stuff in a friendly local game store, your FLGS, because everybody who wanted it got it on Kickstarter, and the games don't have a lot of follow on. We're being really careful and proactive to make sure that we support friendly local game stores, that we've got retailers in mind, and we're not going to shortcut that or cut people out, that they're definitely going to be able to participate in the Kickstarter without fear that, you know, this is it for the game, it's just going to sell on Kickstarter and disappear. We definitely want to bring this into the hobby sphere and make sure it has a life of its own, you know, on those game store shelves.
Very cool. So a couple last things that I want to just make people aware of. You know, we've spent 90 minutes tonight talking about Mythic Legions, the role-playing game. We're going to be obviously talking about it out at San Diego. There's going to be more information about this that drops throughout the year. Certainly, if you're planning on going to Legions Con this year, look out for information there. Look out for some gaming sessions and everything. Just like it had a presence there last year, it's going to have a stronger presence this year. But even before that, there's a couple things that you can do now to stay in the know. So first things first is on the Four Horsemen website. Right at the top, we have a button called Gaming. If you go there, there's definitely a lot of information there. It's pretty high level. It's a lot of stuff we covered tonight, but there's some information there about Mythic Legions, the role-playing game. There's also a little form that you can fill out there if you want to be updated on the progress of the game. But in addition to this, the actual Kickstarter is also live as well. I shouldn't say the Kickstarter is live. The placeholder page, the notify me on launch page is what is live. So if you just look up Mythic Legions on Kickstarter, or after this, we wanted to wait to reveal this on the show. This is going to be linked from that gaming page on Source Horseman as well. But the cool thing about this functionality on Kickstarter is if you use the notify me on launch feature on the Kickstarter page, as soon as we go live, Kickstarter will notify you that this campaign is ready to go. So 2 different options in addition to just being on our normal mailing list. I would imagine that most of my regular viewers are already on our mailing list, but a lot of people are going to be jumping onto this through San Diego and so forth. These are in place to make sure that everyone has an easy way to stay up to date. Before we go, guys, Joe, any last words? You know, like I said, you've been play testing this and everything. You're excited. I know you were at Legions Con. You were in the room when this got revealed, and you were buzzing already. Any last words about, you know, your thoughts, what you're most excited for, so forth?
Well, I think that you know, as a player of this game, you get to become one of the heroes of Mythos. You know, that's always been one of my favorite things about role-playing games is playing or telling a story where it's almost like writing a novel. You know, the characters are involved in these you know, amazing journeys where you develop a connection with those characters, and eventually I think people will be creating their own action figures from what's available to represent their character, and then their character will maybe find a pretty important place in their display because it's them, you know, and that is such a fun, exciting things about role-playing games. And I'm already seeing that, you know, in the play test, that the players are developing connections to their characters, and excited about the adventures that they're going to go on, and want to see where things work out, or abilities that they're getting later on. There's so much to be excited about with this. You know, the game, the figures, everything is just going to be a super fun ride, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Very cool. One note from Trevor, who must be in line over at San Diego, but a great point. He says, the more interest there is on the Kickstarter page, the more Kickstarter will share with people who may be interested. So everyone who is watching this, and spread the word, get this out on the cabal, tell everyone, hit up this page on Kickstarter, hit that notify me on launch. When Kickstarter sees, the full breadth of the Legionnaires, that's going to allow them to bubble it up, and that's what's going to help get it in front of new eyeballs and new potential fans. So thank you very much for that. Len.
Yes.
You have had a trial by fire over the last few weeks, jumping, right into all of this and being a part of it. I know you're having a great time. Give us some last words about Mythic Legions, the role-playing game.
I am glad you gave me the chance, because I forgot to tell you something about this figure. Our friend,
well, wait a minute,
coworker.
Let me solo you. I will solo you.
Okay, our friend and coworker Joe Vassapolo told me he wanted everyone watching to know that he calls this a great figure to spread out. Joe says you could take the parts and spread it out across a lot of builds if you're looking to build, take the parts and make a lot of customs with them. He also says that the armor is a match for the Gunmetal Armory Knight. So if you want to mix them up with a Gunmetal Armory Knight, you can get multiple figures out of this because all the different heads in it. So I just wanted to deliver that message that I promised Joe on Monday morning that I would tell everyone.
Very good. We don't want to disappoint Joe there with that.
Yep.
Cameron.
Yes, sir.
Any last thoughts do we want to leave people with to get them ready for this upcoming Kickstarter?
Man, I don't even, after talking about it so much, I don't know where to start. I think what I really want people to know is that a lot of effort and love and creativity has gone into this. The studio is all really excited for it, and it's going to be a super concise, complete game right from the jump. But just remember, there's so much more to come. There's going to be stuff.
Yep. This
is just the beginning.
Very cool. Some people asking about the cost of the figure at San Diego Comic-Con. It is $60 at San Diego Comic-Con. With that, we are going to say good night, but I have one more thing. I have a scoop. So if you watched the afternoon show at 4 o'clock, literally 5 hours ago, I was saying how I had massive FOMO that I was not out there in San Diego. I wanted to be out there. I wanted to be in that booth looking at this. Joe, I said earlier, are you like me? Are you wishing that you were out there looking at that? Well,
oh man.
We've got to call it tonight because I have a 3:45 Uber taking me to the airport. I am on a plane. I am headed out to San Diego. So if you are going to be going to San Diego Comic-Con, I will be there for the rest of the weekend with the crew. I hope to see you all there, and we can talk all about Legions and certainly all about Mythic Legions, the role-playing game. Thank you all for joining me this night. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to watch us talk about this. I will be back next week, and I'll see you in San Diego.